Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, Careers in Service, Understanding the Widest-Reaching Industry. My name is Justin Stahl, and I am going to be your moderator for today. And before we get started, I'd just like to make a few announcements. So the audience will be muted throughout the duration of our session. However, you can enter your questions and comments in the QA widget at any time. We will take the time to answer your questions in the QA session with our speakers at the end of the presentation. And if you have any if you experience any technical difficulties, we're happy to help you troubleshoot the problem that you're experiencing. At the bottom of the screen, there are multiple application widgets that you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen, clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. You can also find a PDF copy of today's presentation in a link to the CSC blog information about the annual report and other compliance solutions in the resource widget. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you might find useful. So, time for some introductions. So, as I mentioned, my name is Justin Stahl, and I am the Talent Acquisition Specialist for us here at CSC. I've been with the company now for about 7 years and really focus on talent acquisition along with recruitment marketing strategy for our organization. And joining us today is Christina Lockett, who's a workflow coordinator with us, Caitlin Mannix, the service team leader, and Lauren Esposito, who is one of our awesome talent acquisition partners. So looking at the agenda for today, we're going to be looking at defining service at CSC. What are the key skills needed to develop within the service industry? How to find the right fit within the service industry, and bringing your best self to the interview. And then we'll wrap things up with closing and some questions at the end. So let's dive into service and how do we define service here at CSC. So the service industry is it's very broad, and truthfully, it's the backbone of all industries, right? So every industry offers some form of service, and service can encompass a lot of different roles and responsibilities. Even within CSC alone, working in service can mean a lot of different things. A few of which are shown, which we're going to talk about here, as far as what they specifically mean. And for us, service is really one of the 5 core values of CSC. It's in our DNA. And we're proud to partner with several businesses because of the superior service that we deliver to our customers. And we define customers as anyone who really asks anything of us, right? So this could be one of our coworkers, or it could be one of our clients requesting information about a product or needing some information that way. In CLS alone, which is one of our business units here at CSC, we have 13 different service teams, including a few that are listed here. And, we're excited that we've got a few team members here today that are going to be able to speak a little bit more about their roles and experience that they've had here within CSC and their careers within service. So, defining service at CSC. So we've got a couple teams that we're going to be looking at today, right? Our litigation management services team, as well as our compliance mail team. And so, as I mentioned, we've got a few people here that are going to help us out and talk to us a little bit more about it. So let's start off with Caitlin. Caitlin, can you speak a little bit more to your team and what some of their responsibilities are, and maybe give us a little bit of insight into your role on that team?
Absolutely. So I'm Caitlin. I first joined CSC as a workflow coordinator in our Sacramento, California office. And then after a couple of years, I was moved into a dual coach role for our LMS team as well as our fulfillment transactional team. And then at the end of August of last year, I transferred over into our Tallahassee Florida office. So what I do currently is I oversee our LMS intake team and our DRS intake team as well. And what the team really does is we receive services on behalf of our customers that we are registered agent for. We are registered agent for over 1 million different entities, so we receive a lot of different services. And this team is really skilled at receiving those, understanding what the documents are, and then forwarding them on to our clients. And oftentimes in those documents, we receive things that aren't considered service of process or legal documents. We consider those compliance mail. And in that case, we would actually send them to Christina and her team for handling and processing.
Right. Thank you, Caitlin. So very similar to Caitlin's team, our team also receives documents on behalf of a customer, and we will forward it to the customer. The difference is while Caitlin's team is receiving legal documents, the compliance team is receiving documents that are not legal in nature, but they are important to the customer for them to maintain their business. So they would be things like the annual report that's required to file with the Secretary of State to keep the business legally eligible to do business in that state. It could be state tax filings or items from the Department of Revenue, anything that the customer needs in order to continue to maintain their business is considered compliance mail. It comes to my team and we will process that piece and get it sent out to the customer. So it can be one piece, sometimes it can be 1,500 pieces that we're receiving at that time, but each of them are equally important and they get the same amount of attention and we make sure we get those things out. Back to you,
Awesome.
Justin.
Awesome. No, thank you both. I appreciate the insight there. So, as we've heard a little bit already now, getting a sense of what, what those teams are and what some of those roles are, let's kind of shift here and really look at defining service within CSC. And so as we take a look at the, a glimpse at the handful of our teams, now we can see the impact of their collective work has. It's because of the LMS team and our compliance mail team and many others that CSC can serve more than 180,000 different businesses, which is pretty awesome. And that's because of the meaningful work that these teams, and others that we support more than 10,000 law firms. We provide solutions to over 3,000 different customers and do much more. And again, that's just a high level view of, what we're able to accomplish, within CSC and some of the different things that we're doing. So, again, let's take advantage of having some of these great guests with us here and hear a little bit more about some of their personal accomplishments. So, Caitlin, why don't you get us started? Tell us a little bit about some of your accomplishments within the team.
So one of the projects that we've worked on that I'm really proud of, and it was a really great effort for all of the team members involved. There's been a lot of projects, but one that's really near and dear to my heart is we met with all of the team members because every state has an office where they're receiving these documents, and they were processing them differently depending on what they were getting. So we met with all the team members, talked about how they handle the work, focused on like what are some best practices, what are things that we can collaborate on, and what are some processes we could streamline. And one of the things that came out of it directly from our team members was different ways that we could minimize the turnaround time for our clients. So we were working with IT, we were working with our compliance team members, we were working with a lot of different departments to kind of accomplish this goal. And we ended up decreasing our turnaround time for our customers from about 74 minutes on average down to about 26 minutes. So not only is that huge for our clients, but it's also huge for our team members as well. And they were a direct result of that.
That's awesome to hear that kind of automation and time savings. I'm sure that's really appreciated, by your customers, but also, like you said, by the team, just to be able to speed that up like you did and free up time for other projects and tasks. So it's pretty awesome to hear, that type of impact. Awesome. Christina, what about you? Any thoughts, as far as some of your accomplishments and some things that, have been fun to work on within your team?
Yeah, the compliance team has a great deal of fun, especially when it comes to bulk mail, and that's usually annual reports that we're receiving from every state. Usually we're receiving, when we look at bulk, it's maybe 1,500 to maybe 5,000 and sometimes even more. And all of these are annual reports that have to be sent out to each customer. So in the past, what we've been able to do is develop templates so that we could scan the annual reports. We generate a CSC generated template that has all of the information that the customer needs, and we're able to bulk upload those and then send the template to the customer as an automatic email, which makes it much faster and easier for us to process those. So it's a better customer experience as well as a business experience as far as us processing. What I'm really proud of at this time, though, is that we are in the midst of developing a compliance automation project. So the system that we use currently is being revamped, and it will give us the ability to scan every document that comes in. Not only will we be sending it to the client electronically, while in the past they would just get that CSC generated template, now they'll actually get the actual piece that we receive. They'll get a scanned image of that. They'll be able to click a link to see it online. There'll also be a repository where it's saved and stored so that they can access it at any time. And then as well as our internally, the teams here that assist clients will also have access to those documents. So if a customer needs assistance, it'll be easier to provide assistance for them with the documents that they're receiving. So I'm really looking forward to the implementation of the project. It's been a lot of ups and downs, but it's been a really fun and interesting process in the development.
That's awesome. It's probably not often you hear people getting excited when they talk about bulk mail, but it's really neat that the excitement that's coming from you and hearing about the difference that you're making, within a customer's life and the impact that you could have with our customers on this team, right? And coming up with creative solutions to automate and streamline processes. Just shows the, diverse experience that you can get within the service industry, right? It's not just kind of what you would think of initially as kind of that stereotypical service industry. There's a lot of really neat things that we're doing to solve problems for our customers and streamline business processes within our team. So I love to hear the different projects that you both have been working on and your team has been working on. So that's very cool to hear. Awesome. All right. So, as far as, we continue to build on the topic of defining service, within CSC and jobs in the CSC service industry, let's talk a little bit about, how do we get into, Let's talk a little bit about how do you actually get into the service industry? What a service role, what that looks like and what those responsibilities are. And again, how do you get into that industry? And the good news and the exciting news is that there's a lot of different ways. Luckily we've got, as I mentioned earlier, we've got Lauren Esposito here today, who is one of our talent acquisition partners, who really works closely with the business to understand, what they're looking for and how do we fill those positions. And so, Lauren, what can you tell us about getting into the service industry and maybe give us some tips on folks looking to get into service?
Absolutely. So like with most industries, the path in service isn't linear. We've seen people join service teams at CSC from a range of backgrounds, both professionally and educationally. Some of those backgrounds including hospitality industry, food service, retail, healthcare, and pharmaceutical backgrounds, even educational and teaching backgrounds as well. With service being so broad, most people already have some experience or needed skills that would translate really well into a career with us here at CSC. And we can even take a deeper dive into what some of those specific skills would be. So we have our time management skills, teamwork, and critical thinking, that would be especially helpful in one of our service roles here at CSC, many of which you may already have. So time management, including multitasking skills, knowing how to prioritize and organizing to ensure deadlines is super important. A lot of teamwork happens here at CSC. It's one of our core values. So knowing how to work in cross-functional teams, communicating clearly to your teammates and other teams, and then of course critical thinking. So just having that detail-oriented attitude and being tenacious with your problem solving is very helpful. And these are definitely the skills that myself and my colleagues look for when we are going through the recruiting process for CLS service teams. So it'd be great to hear from Christina and Caitlin on what skills you have found the most helpful in your roles and how you have developed those skills over the years. Why don't we start with Christina?
Sure. So I think that you really hit the nail on the head when you outlined the skills that we are looking for when we're looking to fill a role in compliance. To highlight a few of the ones that you've already stated, I would have to say the ability to pivot when needed, being agile and being flexible. That's really important on the compliance team because the nature of what we're getting or the volume that we have can change day to day. And while our team is very small, we have about 5 people on the team right now, and we do rely on each other to, just work as a team. But if something changes from the beginning of your day to the middle of the day, if we get bulk in that we weren't expecting, a lot of times the role that you came in to fulfill at the beginning of the day, by the middle of the day, that's turned upside down. So just being able to kind of roll with the punches and pivot when needed is excessively important when it comes to the compliance team because, like I said, the nature of what you're looking at from day to day can change sometimes within the day. Also, just being detail oriented. A lot of the pieces and the documents that we get are time sensitive, and we do have specific ways that we process the time specific documents, and the customers look for to receive those type of documents in that specific way, and it can really impact a customer negatively when our process isn't adhered to. So it is important that you're detail oriented so that we can make sure that we're processing things correctly. What about you, Caitlin?
I agree. I think these are all fantastic skills to have when you're coming into any type of service industry. And I agree for my areas, attention to detail is huge because like in compliance, we're getting very sensitive legal documents. They could be anything from a subpoena to a summons to a records request. So being able to get those and understand what they're asking and know how to correctly route them to the correct client is huge. Also, communication is key for us. I have 13 people on my team, and they rotate tasks throughout the day. So like in compliance, they may come in thinking they're going to do one thing, and then you just never know what's going to walk through the door. So being able to communicate with each other and kind of game plan on how we're going to tackle the work together and make it fun is a huge thing for us as well. And then being able to prioritize. So when we do get unexpected work coming in, understanding what is going to take priority. And the team is really great about understanding that. And if they have any questions or anything, I'm always there to help support or help guide them as well.
That's awesome. And I think there's really a theme here that, a lot of these skills are going to be in a lot of different roles that, people may have already, right? The multitasking, being able to pivot, having teamwork, being able to work with multiple teams, and that problem solving, right? You don't necessarily need to come from a service industry to have those skills. But if there's interest, it definitely is a translatable skill that can come into, that service industry and the different roles that we have as well. So, as far as, looking at now where those key skills can come from, and I think that was kind of a good transition for us, when we talk about those skills and being able to bring those from a lot of different industries. don't necessarily discount your experience because you didn't work in service, right? You could come from an education background. Maybe you were a teacher for a while, multitasking with your classes and being detail oriented with your agenda and grading and assignments, right? Are all things that could translate very well to the service industry. Maybe it's whether it's internships or different school projects, and you haven't necessarily had your first career job. Well, think about those internships or those school projects. You probably had to multitask with multiple classes. You probably had to work with different groups for projects, and probably had to be very detail oriented in order to maintain a good grade, right? So all skills that are translatable into the service industry. Same thing coming from like banking or financial services, retail, restaurant, hospitality, right? All different things, that you can gain those skills to have a career within the service industry. And lastly, looking at, right, like different startups, maybe it's consulting, maybe coming from the medical field, same thing, right? All areas where you're going to have exposure to working with multiple teams, you're going to have to be detail oriented, you're going to have to pivot and adjust to different challenges or projects that come up and priorities, and balance that, right? And these are all things that you're going to see or could see within a career here at CSC, in that service type of role. So, looking at, how do we find the right fit? And what is, and what does that look like? Oops, excuse me. Sorry. Sorry. I thought I was on the wrong slide there. So as far as finding the right fit, we've got to look at a lot of different things here as far as what interests you, right? What jobs align with your interests, and how does those jobs align with your skills and experience? So, as we've talked about at this point, service covers a lot of different things, and finding the right role and company is definitely important here. Are you passionate about delivering a really positive experience? Are you interested in, collaborating with different teams and finding innovative ways to do things, right? We've talked about how these teams are coming up with these really creative solutions for our customers, right? To automate bulk mail, to automate their emailing processes, right? So it's not necessarily just, maybe being on the phone all the time, right? There's some really cool things that are happening behind the scenes here, that come up within that industry. And so, also, look, are you interested in working with the people around you? It's very team oriented. We've talked about that as well. And so how do we, capitalize on those different skills? So, as we've talked about, these different skills and these different areas and how to find that alignment, let's tap into our experts here, Christina and Caitlin, as far as, things that they liked about their role and how did they know that finding the right fit, that they had found the right fit within CSC. So let's start off with Christina. What can you tell us, as far as what you like about your role within CSC, and how you kind of figured out that it was the right fit for you?
Yeah, so let me start with the fact that when I joined CSC, I came in as a customer service representative in our small business unit, and I automatically loved the atmosphere at CSC. I remember coming into training and everybody, you'd ask people, what do you like about CSC? And everybody's response would be the same thing. I love the people that I work with. The people that I work with make it so easy to do my job. And now here we are 8 years later. And when someone asks me, Christina, what's the best thing that you love about CSC? I have to say as well, it's the people. The people that you work with, everybody is so caring and everybody has the same goal. So CSC really is one big team and all of us are focused on the same goal, which is servicing our customers. And when you have everybody with that mindset, it just makes it very easy to accomplish things and it makes it easy to come to work every day. So that is the one thing that I do love about CSC. The other thing is that CSC gives you that opportunity to find the right fit. So I came into customer service and I was on the customer service team for TCC for about 3 years. And then I decided that I wanted to see something different. I didn't want to be necessarily on the telephone anymore all day. I joined the compliance team and it gave me a different service role where I'm now still assisting customers, but more so behind the scenes. So I'm not on the phone, but we're still delivering a service to our customers. And then in this past October, I transitioned to the workflow coordinator position. I love our team. The compliance team is 5 people, as I said earlier, but we're handling all of the compliance mail for every company within the United States. So all of the entities that CSC services in the United States, we're getting all of that mail and we're able to process it and get it to our customers in a timely fashion. And it's because everyone comes to work with the attitude of what can we accomplish today? How much can we do today? And I just really appreciate that about the people here. And I appreciate the fact that CSC gives you that flexibility to where if one role is not necessarily where you see fit, if you still commit to that role, there are other opportunities that you can apply for until you find the area that's right for you. You have that flexibility. And I just really appreciate that.
I think that's a great call out, and I think that's, it's funny that you mention the people, right? Because I think that's one thing when I have conversations with candidates about, certain jobs or, you always get that question of, well, what do you like about working here? And I always tell people, I'm like, I don't mean to be cheesy here, but it's the people. It really is the people that drew me here in the first place. As I interviewed with the company and got to meet more people, they were genuine, they were authentic, they were, seemed team oriented and all things that really aligned with what I was looking for. So, I think that's a great call out. And I think the flexibility and the opportunity to shape your career is another great call out. That's something that not a lot of organizations offer. And we see it time and time again, people being able to shift their role and move into another team and continue to advance their skills and career within CSC. And so I think service is, as we've talked about, a very broad industry with many different opportunities in there. So I think that's an excellent call out. Caitlin, what about you? Can you give us some insight from your experience to this point and kind of how you found the right fit and some of your experience to this point?
Well, when I was first interviewing at CSC, the thing that really drew me to CSC was the values and the culture that was here. And I agree with both you and Christina. Like, the team members are fantastic. They are hands down the best thing about coming to work every day. I get to work with so many different people in all different departments. And they really do care about our customers and they really do care about each other. And it's amazing when you kind of have that cohesiveness and that just caring nature, you can really thrive in that environment. And one of the things that I also like about CSCs is the stability. So I know right now there's a lot of companies that are laying off employees and restructuring and downsizing and things like that. I myself come from a retail background, so I'm very familiar with that type of industry. But coming to CSC, one of the things that I really liked, one, we've been in business for over 120 years, and CSC is very smart with how we handle things. So if there's ever a time where a business unit has some fluctuation, we don't lay people off. We move them to another area so they can continue to learn new skills. They can continue to grow, and while we're still accomplishing all of our goals for our clients. So that's a huge thing as well. But hands down, the team members is my favorite thing.
See, all about the people. But I think that's another great call out as well, just the stability, right? And the track record that CSC has and being around for over 100 years. And knowing that, you're going to have a job when you come to work each day. And I think that's a really, that's a great feeling to have, right? Knowing that you're coming to work with some great people and you're going to an organization that, is invested in your career and your advancement as well. So, really great call outs. I know we've got Lauren on the call as well, and Lauren, you've kind of had an interesting story and journey, in your career here at CSC as well, and really can kind of talk to finding the right fit. What can you kind of tell us about your experience at this point, and kind of starting within service and now your journey into TA? Really, I think that's a great addition to the conversation today, and I think would be interested to hear just a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay? I was having some technical difficulties.
No, good. Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Okay, thank you. So yes, I have been with CSC 4.5 years now. I actually started with the Incorporate.com team as a customer service representative. So that is our small business unit. I really enjoyed just the customer service aspect. I came from retail where I also felt that customer service was in my DNA, like it was just part of me. So I fit in really well with the team and just the culture here at CSC. I had a lot of desire to go into kind of like a training or leadership pathway within customer service. And my leaders were actually really awesome and worked with me to help me test out the waters a little bit as far as leadership responsibilities, having the opportunity to train other incoming CSRs on the team, which was really fun. And I love that I got that experience. In the end, I actually wanted to pursue a more technology-based opportunity where I was doing product support analyst work for one of our order entry platforms. I worked really heavily in this specific platform in my position. So my skills really benefited that team. And I learned so much just on the technology side of how customer service works. And it was a really amazing opportunity for me to pursue that. And how I got in talent acquisition is actually pretty funny because I, didn't really have a background in that specifically in human resources or talent acquisition, but it's something that I was always interested in ever since I started with CSC, just kind of in the background, thinking that that's something I would be really good at, or that's something I would really enjoy. I was always recruiting people to come join CSC and sending referrals out to everyone that I met and knew. So it was kind of just in my DNA to kind of just have that natural ability to do that. When there was an opening for talent acquisition, I decided to let my current leader know in my technology position. And she was so supportive of my decision to want to apply and understood that I've always had that desire and the opportunity was right there. And it ended up working out really well. So that's a little bit of my background and how I came to be within CSC and now on the talent acquisition team.
Awesome. And I think that's a really cool theme to hear from the three of you, just the different roles and finding your way, in service, right? And continuing to evolve each step along the way, which I think is really neat. I know there's not a lot of organizations where you are able to have that type of mobility and to get that support from your manager to say that, yes, take that next step and pushing you for that growth. So, whether it's in the service industry or finding your way to a home in TA, there are definitely a lot of career paths, that we've been able to highlight here, which I think is awesome within CSC. So moving on, right? So we're talking about finding the right fit. Well, let's talk about, bringing your best self to an interview and, what are some things that you can do to really help get yourself into that role, right? And so 5 tips, right? These are kind of high level, but just something that we always want to kind of reiterate as far as, bringing your best self to the interview. So being genuine, right? I think this is something seems obvious, but, be yourself, represent your skills that are accurate, right? I think talk about things that you know about. And if you don't, be ready to talk about how you've learned something similar, or maybe how you don't have experience there, but you're willing to learn. And again, bring up that experience of, hey, I learned this system, very similar. And just be transparent and genuine about your experience and what you're looking for. I would also say, do some research, do some homework, spend a little bit of time figuring out what the company is doing. Look at the job description and figure out examples from your experience that may align with the job description. Have you ever automated anything? Have you ever, come up with a creative solution to streamline business processes? What are some things that you've done to work in a team environment, and how do you balance that? How do you pivot and be agile within your experience at this point? And even as an intern, or maybe you haven't had your first job, you can still leverage your experience in school and projects that you've worked on, to highlight some of that experience and how that matches up with the job. So I just say, again, be ready to talk about your experience, be ready to talk about the company and things that you've researched and seen online. And even the things that maybe you found out about the interviewer, right? And kind of some of the homework that you've done there. But definitely spend some time doing some research. The next area I think would be creating your message, right? What do you want your message to be, and what do you want the hiring manager to know about yourself? Come up with concise answers, that are going to get to the point, but also convey all the key topics and key points that you want to get across. You really want to leave that hiring manager wanting to talk to you again. So spend some time and come up with that awesome message of who you are, and that really rolls into the next thing of practice, right? So once you've done that research, once you've created that message, practice that. Spend some time going through your message, answering some simulation questions if you want to, and really get yourself going to that final point of getting yourself ready. Be prepared and be ready to answer questions, and have examples ready to go that you can leverage within your conversation. It really makes yourself come across a lot better in that interview when you're ready to go and prepared for all questions, prepared for your introduction and that conversation. So, just again, some tips there. But, Lauren, anything to add, or any additional tips that you've seen, in your time, in your interviews, any additional tips that you would mention to folks for getting ready for interviews?
Yeah, I think we covered a really great amount of the main tips to ace that interview. Something I'd like to add under the research and prep category would be a tip that one of our members of the talent acquisition team brought up previously was pulling up the job description that you're interviewing for, and having a copy of that kind of next to you during the interview to reference. So that way you can really cite specific examples of times where you displayed the qualities that are being asked for in the job description. I think that goes a long way to show that you are the perfect fit for the position, and that you are aware of what that actual position would entail and the day-to-day operations of it.
Perfect. Christina, Caitlin, anything to add as far as some things that maybe you've experienced at this point? Any interview tips that you can, whether it's personally going through interviews, or maybe interviews that you've had on your team, is there, any tips or anything that you'd like to add to this?
I will, if I could highlight being genuine. What we find at CSC, and especially on the compliance team, and I say this because the compliance team can kind of be considered like just your stepping stone into the service industry, or your stepping stone into CSC, because we're not necessarily looking for you to know exactly how to do the job. We want to know that you are trainable and that you're committed to coming in and learning the job. So I say that to say, like, we highlighted that, many people that join CSC do not have a background in service. Most people that join the compliance team do not have a background in service, and that's okay. But if you're presenting your best self, you're presenting us with the fact that while you may not have the experience, you have knowledge of some of the things that we would be looking for. Like, how you do have good time management skills. You are team oriented. Just coming and presenting your best self and being genuine about where you come from and where you would like to go in the future. I think you were about to say something, Caitlin. I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. For LMS, even though we're handling legal documents, myself, my team members, we do not have a legal background. I joined CSC because one of my friends was working at CSC, and she talked a lot about the culture and about the team members. And so when I applied, I was also apprehensive because I was like, I don't know, I've never handled a subpoena, I've never handled a summons, I don't know how to do that. But you don't need to know how to do that. One of the best things about CSC is that we have really strong trainers, whether they're subject matter experts in the legal industry or in the service industry or whatever business unit you're applying for. You are definitely going to get that hands-on training. And we recognize that everyone learns differently as well. So we have a lot of different tools and a lot of different resources to make sure that when you're onboarding and when you're training, we're providing all of those resources as well. One of the things that I love is also when I'm interviewing people, I want them to ask questions too. I want to make sure that not only am I making sure that they're a good fit for the team, that they're going to enjoy coming to CSC, they're going to enjoy being on the team as well, they're going to enjoy the work that they're doing. There's a lot of times where I'll interview someone for one area, and and they'll mention something in the interview. I'll be like, actually, they would be a fantastic fit for this other department. And so there's, even between leaderships and talent acquisition, we cross share a lot of candidates' information because we'll look at it and we'll each pick out different things that we think would be a good fit for them. And then when we talk to them, we'll also have those spots in the back of our mind as well, because we never want to just bring people on to bring people on. We really want them to be successful when they're here. We really want them to thrive when they're here. So that's also something that I look for as well.
No, that's a great call out. And I love the point of, asking questions as well, right? I think, it really shows that you're genuinely interested in the role, that you're invested in that. And to be honest, in my experience, some of the best parts of the conversation come up in those question times, because it's a real opportunity for you to get to know the manager, to get to know the team, and to get to know the person that you're talking to. And, again, I think I mentioned earlier, the goal is to really leave that hiring manager wanting to talk to you again. And, that's an opportunity for you to really create that bond and kind of get outside of some like your behavioral questions, and get to more of some of those interaction elements, right, of getting to know each other. So I think that's a great call out, is, just to be genuine, right, to be ready to have those conversations, to ask questions, and to kind of showcase, who you are. So I think very good call outs and some great tips there. So, continuing along the interview tips and suggestions, let's look at some virtual interview tips. So, like many companies over the last few years, we've talked about pivoting and the need for being agile. We've had to do that a lot here as well. And that translates into, the interview and recruitment process. And so, we have moved a lot of our interviews to virtual, all right? And so, we do have some interviews that happen on site when that's applicable, but a lot of the interviews are also happening, via video. And, that can be a little different for folks if you haven't interviewed in a while, or maybe you haven't interviewed virtually before. So, some of the things that we've already talked about right in our last slide, as far as, being genuine, doing your research, practicing, being prepared, all still things that I think are relevant to, those virtual interviewing. But, I think, and just to kind of build on that, just really continue to practice for virtual interviews, right? Making sure your equipment works. It seems a little silly, but you've heard this in the past. Look in the mirror and kind of look at your facial expressions. How are you coming across? How does your voice sound? Are you smiling? Are you excited about your answers and what you've done? And just really making sure that, you are bringing your best self to those interviews. Again, that your backgrounds are all set up, everything looks professional, your speakers are working, your headphones are working, and really that you're able to convey your true self via video, right? It's as close as we can get sometimes to that in-person interview. And so it's just a great opportunity for you to have that FaceTime with the team, to be prepared and to be ready to go for that. Lauren, anything to add to some of the virtual interviewing tips from things that you've seen recently, or anything that you wanted to mention when it comes to virtual interviewing tips?
Sure. So I would definitely check your technology, like the slide says. It's always good to make sure that whatever app you're using, whether that is Zoom or Microsoft Teams, that it's compatible with whatever device that you're going to use for the interview. There's nothing worse than already having the butterfly nerves for an interview and then your technology is failing you at that time. So just eliminating that as a possible error during that time is always going to be really helpful. And then eliminating distractions is really good too. So if there's any way that you can plan ahead to make sure that wherever you are having the interview is going to be a safe spot for you to really focus on the questions and really be yourself during the interview and not, have to be distracted by other outside noises or backgrounds. That is always going to be super helpful as well. And then lastly, I would definitely call out body language and posture as well. That definitely goes a long way. How you present yourself on camera is going to go longer than you would think during an interview. So just little things to pay attention to. It's always helpful to put a little Post-it on your laptop or your computer to just like remind you, smile, shoulders up, things like that. So it's easy to kind of get relaxed and forget that while you're interviewing.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, some good call outs there. I know even before this call, I was having some audio issues, right? So being able to test that ahead of time to make sure that it worked. And luckily we were able to get it all figured out in time, but you just never know. So it's always good to just be prepared and make sure you test things out and be ready to go. So just some additional, tips that we wanted to mention from the virtual interviewing standpoint. So as we move ahead here, right, and we kind of look at, kind of who CSC is, right? We've talked about, what service is within CSC, and kind of looking at some interview tips, but, just to give you some additional background, right? Our tagline is really, we are the business behind the business. And because put simply, that's who we are. It really encompasses, being the business behind business is a lot, and as we talked about, we've been in business for over 100 years and we've grown to a global organization and have helped establish companies, keep them in compliance, protect and secure their online brands, and come up with other solutions to help them with their business. So as you see here, we are headquartered in Wilmington, Delaware. We're located in 50 states, 14 different countries. And, we've got a pretty good presence in Delaware where we're headquartered. We've also got some pretty good locations in Illinois, in Florida, and London. And we also have remote and hybrid opportunities as well, right? So not only do we have, our in-office folks, but we have opportunities that are going to be remote or hybrid. So we really have a lot of different opportunities depending on what you're looking for. So, again, we've got employees all over now, and we continue to keep growing. And, again, we've talked about some of our core values, right, and what that's like, within CSC, but really wanted to hit on those core values, and kind of highlight, what it's like to be here at CSC, what we're about, and how, you can kind of highlight some of those skills. So, service, right? We talked about, our passion for service. And, not only is that, for our external customers, but also for our internal customers as well, right? Our coworkers. And how do we really, deliver the best experience and exceptional service across the board? And I know we talked about it, and Lauren has mentioned too, right? It's really part of our DNA. That's who we are, and that's really things that we believe in. Same thing when it comes to teamwork. We really feel like better together, right? That's something that you'll hear quite a bit within our organization. And I think that's something that we believe and try to live, is that we are better together, and that when we put our heads together and we work collaboratively, that great things happen. And, you'll continue to see that throughout. And I know you've heard great examples today, just as far as how our teams work together and how we solve problems for not only internal but external clients, as well. Tenacity. We definitely are going to stick around, and we're going to put our best efforts in until we get the job done. Right. That is something that, I think you'll see with all the people that work here at CSC, that, we are tenacious, we are driven, we want to succeed, and we want the best experience for our employees, for our team members, and for our customers. So we are definitely in it for the long haul, and you're going to see that, within CSC. And, this one is one that we've hit on several times today, but agility, right? The last couple years have really taught us as a business to be agile, to be able to move and to shift tasks and projects that we're working on, and sometimes at the snap of a finger, and that's really what we have to do. And so I think being agile and knowing how to be able to bounce from project to project sometimes, or shift our approach, it is really helpful. And then lastly, genuine, right? I know we've talked about this and you've heard just in terms of the importance of being genuine, whether it's interviewing, whether it's in your role, interaction with customers, being genuine is a key tenet to, what our values are as part of, CSC. So now we've talked about what it's like in service, how to get into service, what that means here at CSC. And the good news is, if you're interested in getting into service, we've got a lot of positions available right now, that we are currently hiring for in the service industry. So this can be things like a customer service representative working in corporate transactions. Again, we've got a position that we're working on in Boston. We've got one in Wilmington. We've got customer service associates in Springfield, customer service in Wilmington, right? So we've got a lot of different opportunities in different areas of the business that, can really help get your foot in the door and find your space within the service industry. We are typically regularly hiring for, CSRs, which are the customer service representative, customer service associates, and we usually do a lot of intern work over the summer as well. So even if you're thinking of this as maybe more of an internship opportunity, maybe not necessarily done with school or still pursuing some education that way, there are some summer internship opportunities that, we can add to the table as well. So just wanted to highlight some of the roles that we're looking for right now, as well as some of the positions that we will typically hire for throughout the year. So, that was the main things, right, that we wanted to cover in today. So, there's a lot of great ways for you all to stay in touch with us, to find out about those career opportunities that we have. Right, so joining us through Facebook, through Twitter, LinkedIn, the Muse, there's a lot of different areas that we try to put our content out there where you can read stories about what it's like to be a CSR. You can read stories, and employee testimonials about their experience at this point and maybe their career path and how they were able to go from a service career, one area of service into another, or maybe someone like Lauren who started in service and ended up in TA, right? There's a lot of these different avenues, and we really are trying to showcase that, in all of our different channels. And a lot of great opportunities for you to interact with us, to engage with us, to learn about future opportunities or current opportunities through these different profiles and different platforms. So always feel free to reach out to us. We definitely are very active on that. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through those platforms. Look at our careers page. You can sign up for updates on there to keep posted on any of the most up-to-date positions that are coming out, future positions, etc. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out if there's any questions or just wanting to learn more about positions that are out there. So with that being said, If there's any questions or anything that, we wanted to go over that maybe we covered today, we'd definitely be happy to open it up to some questions. As always, you're welcome to kind of download the PDF and be able to go through any of this. There's some contact information in there as well, so feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. But definitely happy to spend some time here answering any questions if there are any. All right, so it looks like we've got one question here right now. So what were some common misconceptions you may have had when you entered the service field? Any of our guests here want to take a crack at this question? Any misconceptions that you had coming into service, and maybe just how your experience was a little bit different than what you might have thought?
I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and something that Christina actually mentioned, was having to be on the phone. A lot of our customer service associates and reps are not on the phone. A lot of them are handling correspondence through emails. And so I don't want people to be deterred for applying for those roles because they are concerned about phone calls. I know when I was first transitioning from retail into a more corporate environment, I was also apprehensive about getting on the phones. And so I tended to steer clear of different jobs that had that. But a lot of the roles that we have at CSC require little to no phone calls. So I think that's a big thing.
And it's a little bit different type of customer service too, right? I mean, in terms of interactions with more businesses and your customers that way, than maybe what you would think of, like you said, kind of being on the phone and kind of, taking customer service calls in kind of a retail setting, right? A little bit different that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm sorry, did somebody else have anything to add to that too? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. I was just going to add to what Christina said, or Caitlin, I'm sorry, about being on the phone. Even the positions that we are considered to be in a call center, I don't like to describe them as your typical call center where you are taking 200 calls a day and you're just trying to get the person off the phone to take another call as quickly as possible. Even our call center positions are very diligent with, not rushing our representatives off the phone. It's it's a more personable experience. It's almost kind of like a relationship building aspect with customer service. So even though you are on the phones in those particular positions, it's not what you might think it would be. So that was a common misconception that I had joining the call center team at CSC, thinking that I was going to be on the phone every minute of the day, which was not true. It's a lot of back end work as well, and personal follow up with your customers. So that was just something that I wanted to add to. Awesome. No, both those are some great call outs, and I think really gives some additional insight into what it means to be at service, right, and to be in a service type of role within CSC. So definitely appreciate the insight there. Doesn't look like we've got any more questions at this time, so I think we can probably start wrapping up here, and I know we're coming up to the hour anyways. So really appreciate everyone jumping on and hopefully getting some really good insight into the service career industry, options that you can have with your career once you get your foot in the door somewhere, and how to find your best fit and to kind of ace that interview. So we definitely appreciate the time. And, again, you'll be able to download a copy of today's materials from the Resource Center. So feel free to do that. If you've got any questions outside of today, obviously feel free to reach out. And, we'll leave you with one last slide here, which is kind of more of a poll question. Looking at what kind of career opportunities at CSC would you like to learn about next?
We really like to use these webinars as an opportunity to highlight, what the roles are within our organization, and to kind of call out, as the team was mentioning, that, service isn't really your prototypical or stereotypical service within CSC. And hopefully you learn just a little bit about some of the cool things that we're doing and that you could be doing within the service industry. And so we want to use these webinars as an opportunity to continue to highlight some of our other awesome teams and the really neat things that they're doing. So, feel free to leave us some feedback here on maybe some of the things that you'd be interested in hearing about next. And hopefully we'll catch you in our next webinar. So again, thanks to everyone who joined. Thank you to Lauren, Christina, and Caitlin for all of your expertise and spending some time with us here today. And we're looking forward to seeing everyone next time.